Hi, my name is Juan, and for the last 12 months, I've spent the best year of my life on an adventure. Today, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. But before I do that, let me tell you a story. So, 12 months ago, I went on a trip to Canada that I did not want to go on. I always hated traveling. I thought it was really uncomfortable. The plane's all shaky, it's all scary. So, I always like being at home. But my friends, they invited me on this trip. They're like, let's go climb this mountain. So, I listened to them. I was like, all right, fine, let's go. So, we're going on the trail. Initially, it's going all fine. There's people around us. But eventually, we take some back way. I don't know, some sort of extra trail. And all of a sudden, the trail disappears, and so does everyone around us. I'm not sure. We were just on this gravel, and we eventually started to bear crawl our way to the top because it was getting so windy and there was no path. But eventually, we did make it to the top. And as I sat up there, I looked down below me, and I was literally staring at death in the face, like thousands of feet of rock and tree were right below me, like inches apart. And but above me, it was this feeling of beauty as I was like finally on top of the world, this view that I've never had before. And so I guess the best way to describe it is sublime. It's feeling, being as close to death as you ever have before, but also feeling as alive as ever before. And weeks and months after I left this trip and I left this mountain behind, I kept coming back to that feeling on the mountain. I was like, that sublime feeling. How can I get that in my life? How can I find the sublime without having to travel to Canada or without having to do all these crazy exotic things? How can I live my life with like an adventure without having to travel across the world? And this is the primary question that I wanted to answer in this book. Here are the three goals. I wanted to know, what are adventures? How can we live our lives like an adventure? And why should we go on adventures? Okay, so first, definitions of adventures, right? So these are things most people think of: traveling across the world, scouring Middle Earth, getting married, all these realistic or fantastical things that are really rare and like happen almost never or maybe a few times in your life. It's like really rare. And so I think this definition should be thrown out and we can come up with something more applicable that we can all live by. And what I kept coming back to was that mountain. I came back to the sublime feeling and I was like, how can I get this feeling of sublime in my life? Well, first, what is the sublime? Well, it's essentially where the horrifyingly uncomfortable meets an exciting new thing, right? This is exactly right in the middle of that, where those two overlap, is where the sublime lies. And this is what we're looking for in our lives to have an adventure. And how do we find the sublime? Well, we do it by doing these seven things. All right, first, accept the gamble. Realize that, firstly, we are comfort creatures, right? Whenever we are cavemen, evolution primed us to be scared, to stick in our comfortable caves and be scared of the unknown, and because we might get eaten by a predator, right? And it made sense then, but not so much now, right? Everyday life is full of similar choices. You can either go out tonight or stay inside and finish my book. Roll the dice on philosophy or keep taking the same old math classes. Talk to a stranger next to me in statistics or quietly continue scrolling Instagram. Go to that new restaurant that opened downtown or keep driving through my same Chipotle order. But here's the thing, there's nothing inherently right or wrong about these choices. So, in the same way that I was 5 steps away from death and 1 foot away from paradise on that peak, so are our choices in life. Talking to a stranger is always 5 feet from a boring conversation or 1 inch from a new relationship. Going to a new restaurant is always a coin toss between an afternoon of unhappy taste buds or a brand new place to show everyone you know. Trying out a new class is nearly inches from being a living hell and a wasted Q job or a brand new passion or career to pursue. By definition, an adventure involves risk. And as an adventurer, we have to always accept the gamble, right? But how do we find situations where we have to accept the gamble? Because unless we're looking for these new restaurants or these strangers to talk to, it might not be obvious to try these new things. Well, what I found was listening is one of the best ways we can do this. So the only way I ended up on that mountain was because I listened to my friends and what they thought. So, and I decided to go climbing. And that's how I came up with the Sublime. So, what I realized was that some of the best adventures are just staring at us in the face every day of our lives, and we don't even bother looking twice. And it's other people, right? So in psychology, I learned that there's a huge bias where our brains love to talk about themselves. We are obsessed with ourselves, me, right? And so a lot of conversations, a lot of the time, will just end up with people talking at each other instead of talking to each other. So if we can turn off that side of our brain that's ourselves and what we think and what we already know, right? That comfortable cave, and we listen to the other person, you will be surprised on the amount of adventures you can end up in. In my own life, I have been blown away. Before, a good example, I used to hate cooking. This is a whole chore. I really uncomfortable, and I just like never liked. It just felt very boring. But in my lab, I met this girl, and she loved cooking, and I listened to her fascination with it. I was like, "Hey, tell me a recipe I should cook." And so, for the first time, I went down these new aisles in HEB. I was having conversations with new friends that I'd never talked to. I started cutting vegetables that I've never done before, and I ended up learning this skill that I use all the time now. So it was amazing, and this all just sparked from listening to someone. I did the same thing with a triathlon. I listened to my friend; he was doing it. I hated exercise, but I ended up running a triathlon. It went amazing. I presented at a science symposium. I hate science. This is something I probably won't do again. But it's these situations that we end up in that when we just listen to people, we can go on the adventure, right? And so what I recommend is just listen to other people. Whenever people are talking to you about something they like, they're holding a baton to you. And you can either take it, go on that adventure, listen, go on that, read that book, or go to that mountain, or try that new recipe, or you can keep talking about what you want to talk about, right? We always want to listen. Now, while we're listening, we have to, and we're going on these adventures, we have to focus on enjoying the process, right? I mean, there's always a saying about how it's always about the journey, not the destination, but it really is. Like, while I was going on all these adventures, I wasn't focused on the outcome of cooking this meal or the outcome of finding out about the Sublime on that mountain. I was just focused on surviving, doing all this crazy stuff. So, what I recommend is shift your focus on adventures to focusing on the process, right? So, if the goal of your adventure is to climb a mountain, focus on the process of just practicing hiking and going to the mountain and seeing what you find, right? If the goal of your adventure is to cook a 5-star meal, well, then just focus on the process of learning to cut veggies and reading recipes, right? And how all this newness goes with that. If the goal of your adventure is to win an Ironman, well, then just focus on joining a run club, meeting new people, going to run around new places that you haven't ran downtown, right? This is what we need to focus on, the process, okay? Now, while we're focused on the process, we have to realize that things will go wrong, right? Like, while I was on that mountain, I could have fell backwards and died, and what was going through my head was, hey, I'm gonna die, but if something happens, at least I'll have a cool story. So we have to realize that, as Murphy's Law goes, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Adventures are filled with discomfort. Things will go wrong, and the best way to combat it is to embrace it, right? So it's just like my diagram. You just got to embrace the discomfort, because whenever you do this, your brain can go down two modes whenever you are faced with discomfort. You can either go down the stress route, which approximately leads to more stress, or you can smile and laugh at the shitty hotel or tent that you're sleeping in tonight. You can smile at that you at least had the balls to try a computer science class while your other friends took the easy classes, right? And a lot of the times what I realized, something really interesting happens when you do this, is you'll often get some of the best stories whenever things go wrong on your adventure and you just rolled with it, right? Like, I think a lot of people can relate. Some of their best stories are, oh, when I got stranded in this place, or I took the wrong train to here, or my taxi put me here. And if you just smile and roll with it, a lot of the times they make pretty cool stories. So, yes, smile, live in the moment, okay? Now, how do we find these good stories? We need to keep a journal, okay? So half the part of having an adventure is being able to tell the story. In The Hobbit, the only way Bilbo can tell his cousin the entire journey is by writing it down, right? We all know our memories are really weird. As my little diagram show, as time passes, the memory kind of just explodes. We forget the days that pass. So the way you remedy this is by keeping a journal and recording what's going on every day, right? And what you'll realize is something really special happens, because it becomes almost like this form of time travel. Whenever you read it back months or years later after you forgot that day, it lets you go back in time and literally talk to a previous version of yourself, a past self, and you get to see your thoughts and ideas and stories that were going on at that time. And that's how you find your adventures. You don't have to travel to Middle Earth or participate in a bank heist. Oftentimes in life, the best adventures, we realize them months or years after they happen, right? So write it down, okay? Now, while we're writing down our all our adventures, what do we have to do? We also have to tell these stories, right? This is really important because as an adventurer, people are gonna want to know about your travels, right? Like Marco Polo, all these famous people wanted to hear what was going on, right? And so what I realized is that your journal's for you, right? It's where you organize your thoughts, feelings, ideas, and stories. But your stories are for the world. They're where you empathize, connect, and teach to other people what you've discovered on your adventures. And so what you need to practice is in your journal, figure out ways to shorten down your adventures into short, concise stories. Like, what did I learn? What did I meet along this journey? And then you can tell people about them. And something really interesting happens when you do this, okay? So, whenever you tell someone a story about what you learned or what happened on your adventure, it makes you vulnerable, and naturally, people are going to want to tell you something interesting that they've learned. They'll be like, oh, that reminds me of this book I read, or that reminds me of this movie I saw, or this mountain I climbed, this place I've been to. And that's where you listen and it restarts the whole cycle, right? And what do I mean by this? Well, it's the adventurer's life cycle. So, um, what we do is we find a cool activity, right? We either listen to someone or we just explore, find something cool. We do it, we learn something new, we meet new people, collect a story, we share that story, we tell other people about it. That makes them probably want to open up and tell us about something that we never knew about. We listen to them and then it repeats the cycle all over again. We find something new, we listen to what they wanted to do, and so it completes the whole cycle, and that's the adventure cycle. Okay, so why should we go on adventures, right? Because that was a lot. Like, this is a lot of things that we need to do, and it's all complicated, and sometimes it doesn't even go our way. So, like, TV is cool or video games. Why don't we do that? Why don't we stay inside and just like read all day? Okay. Well, I think ultimately self discovery is the secret ingredient, as Grace Lincolnson said, right? So, how do I pose this to you? So, are you interested in knowing who you truly are? Is this a question that you're interested in knowing the answer to? Well, if it is, then adventures are one of the best ways you can figure it out, because when we go on adventures, we not only explore the world, but ourselves as well, right? So when we go on adventures, we meet new people. We learn what we like, what we don't like. We collect stories, learn lessons, change our values, understand our worldview, and ultimately, all these things, right? The people we meet, the passions we find, the stories we have, and the lessons we learn, what they add up to is your life. Thank you.